The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
It was one of the most chilling crimes in Idaho history. A masked man sneaks into the house of 4 college students and brutalizes them in the middle of the night. Now, that man is convicted and will live out the rest of his days behind bars. But tonight, for the first time, we are seeing pictures of the knife sheath that led to the arrest of Brian Koberger. In Ocala, Florida, mother of 4, A.J. Owens, was shot through a door by her neighbor, Susan Lawrence, back in June of 2023. Susan tried to claim self-defense, but the jury didn't buy it. And now, behind bars, Susan is threatening her victims' children with a defamation lawsuit. We have the details. But first, Rebecca and Jake Haro's claim of a terrifying abduction shattered lives and triggered a frantic investigation. On August 14th, 2025, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro vanished from a Yucaipa parking lot. His mother reported that she'd been assaulted while changing his diaper and awoke to find him gone. Investigators later disproved that kidnapping story, uncovered inconsistencies in Rebecca's account, and revealed that baby Emmanuel had likely died after prolonged abuse. The couple was arrested on murder and false report charges while authorities continued searching remote terrain for Emmanuel's remains. Rebecca Haro has pled not guilty and is awaiting trial while her husband Jake pled guilty, and today Jake Haro learned his sentence for the murder of little Emmanuel. Welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Ted Rollins. In for Vinnie Politan tonight, we begin the week and the hour in California, where a major chapter in the horrific story of baby Emmanuel ended just a few hours ago in a jam-packed Riverside County courtroom. The story, of course, began with 2 parents telling this wild story about their 7-month-old just vanishing after mom, Rebecca, claimed that she was attacked in the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store. That, of course, a complete lie. And eventually, Jake, the dad, did end up admitting to it, saying, "I lied." Rebecca, mom, has pled not guilty. Jake pled guilty. There are many questions, though, unanswered, including where are Emmanuel's remains and why was dad, Jake, out of jail in the first place? He was out on parole. He had already admitted to abusing another child, fracturing his 10-month-old daughter's skull just 7 years before. That young girl will spend the rest of her life confined because of the injuries. Today, the defense thought, because he was sentenced today, well, you know, he came clean, he admitted this, he should only get 13 years. That would be fair. Well, the judge disagreed.
It cannot be ignored that Mr. Haro was on probation for severely abusing one child when he decided to assault and kill another child. Further, the court notes that Mr. Haro was out on bail in 2 cases, including one for abusing his daughter when he killed baby Emmanuel. And the fact that Mr. Haro pled guilty at an early stage, while not insignificant, cannot overcome the horrific nature of the circumstances here. Given the admissions Mr. Haro himself has made with respect to the aggravating factors, accordingly, I will impose the indeterminate term of 25 years to life.
25 plus, even more. He came down hard, did this judge. Let's head out to Riverside County, California. That's where we find Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson joining us from outside of the courthouse. And Matt, I want to start with what really moved everyone in that courtroom today and all of us watching at home, that victim impact statement.
Yeah, a victim impact statement that wasn't planned. Initially, prosecutors stood up before the judge before he handed down that 37-plus year sentence to Jake Haro, this confessed killer of his 7-month-old baby. And prosecutors said, we don't have anyone to speak on behalf of the small, tiny victim in all of this. And then the courtroom got quiet. They looked over to one section of the gallery because the grandmother stood up. She identified herself as the maternal grandmother. She said that she wanted to make a statement. It was unplanned. The judge said, we have all the time in the afternoon as long as you want to take. And she addressed this defendant at that defense table. She said, look at me. child killer. She called him that. She said that you are a baby killer, you're a wife abuser, you abuse the other kids. And she also said that the system failed her family. She had no idea that this was going on and that he should have never been around children in the first place. Take a listen.
I wanted Jake to face me, to look at me, because I told him that I would be here for his sentencing before he was arrested. I talked to him about, as a friend, to tell me everything, because he didn't give me the opportunity to meet my grandson. He destroyed my whole family. He branded his children for life. He damaged her children, all his children for life. And in doing that, he destroyed my family, my children, everybody in my family. All my children are destroyed by this. And I think the judge that let him go should be here sitting with him. And so is social service. Because they could have told me, oh no, protocol doesn't allow us to tell you anything. Well, how are we supposed to protect our children if we don't know? The court knows what's going on. I didn't know. I called social service. I didn't know what he had done to his other children. And here he sits, you know, like nothing. Somebody will give him another chance. And I don't want that. Because he didn't give his children a chance. He didn't give my daughter a chance.
And you know, Ted, I was seated in the gallery right behind this confessed killer, Jake Haro, within an arm's distance of him, and I was paying close attention to what he was doing. He was just looking down the whole time. He never addressed his mother-in-law. He never looked over in that direction, clearly not showing any remorse.
Yeah, it was as emotional as the courtroom was. He didn't seem to be reflective of it. A little bit of lip quivering, but nothing of note. Baby Emmanuel remains have not been found as of yet. A lot of people in that community were affected by this, and they want more answers because there's more questions, are there not?
Yeah, you know, and this is a case that really draws attention all across the country, right? This started as a kidnapping case, alleged, where the baby had been kidnapped from Yucaipa from a shopping center, and then it turned out to be false, according to investigators, and by the admission of this baby killer. Well, you know, this case continues to draw a lot of people, not only to Cabazon, which is 33 miles away from the county seat here in Riverside, where this baby's house was, growing memorial there. You have a lot of supporters there. And then you have a lot of supporters here at the courthouse for every single one of these hearings. And these are women that wear blue shirts with photographs, pictures of the victim, baby Emmanuel, on them. I spoke with a couple of the ladies that were here at court today. They were filling the seats in the gallery. Here's what they told me.
It's important for us to be here because we're here to support the baby. We're here, he has sentencing today, so we want to be here for that. And I do hope he gets lifetime without parole. And for the baby, nobody's here for the baby. We're all, the women that you see here, over there, right here, we're the women that are here for the babies, being his voice.
And that's where they are right now. They continue to fight. They fight for justice for this little baby because there's still another pending court case, right? The co-defendant, the mother in all of this that still is charged. We're going to be talking about that, her case going next year in 2026 now. But they say that they want to be his voice, and they're going to continue to fight for answers and also fight until he can have a proper burial. Remember, Jake Haro has never disclosed what he did with the child's body.
Let's talk about what's next. You know, Rebecca is one prong here that has so many questions. What did she know? To what extent was he forcing her to tell this lie in front of the cameras? What is next? Lay out her case and what we know and what we don't.
Well, you know, it was quite interesting here at the courthouse today because we had her defense attorney listening in on all of this. We had her mom that was making that victim impact statement and saying that this man was abusing his wife and changed his wife. She lost touch. They were estranged during all of this. She had never even met the grandchildren, including the victim, 7-month-old Emmanuel. She said that she never even knew him. But what we do know is that she's going to be in court for her next preliminary hearing, which is going to be at the next year, January 21st, rather, of 2026. And she was supposed to have her preliminary hearing today, but here's what happened during her last court date.
Ms. Haro, you have the right to have your preliminary hearing heard within 10 court days concluded within 60 calendar days of your arraignment. You waive those rights and agree instead that your preliminary hearing would be timely if held within 10 court days of January 21st. Ma'am, you're ordered back to this department on January 21st for felony settlement conference.
All right, so the Riverside County District Attorney is still pursuing the prosecution of Rebecca Haro. They released this statement to Court TV and other media outlets just a few minutes ago. Let me read it to you, put it on your screen. This is from District Attorney Mike Hestrin. It says, quote, "The lies told in this case only deepened the tragedy of Emmanuel's death." It goes on to say, while today's sentence represents a measure of accountability for Jake Haro, our office will continue to seek justice as the case against his co-defendant moves forward. Clearly speaking about his wife, Rebecca Haro, who's going to be in court January of 2026. But it was also interesting today that her mom was present in court making that statement, like I mentioned, and also her investigator and her attorney were in court today. They didn't want to mention anything to the media where they are in their case, but they are planning a defense.
Clearly, planning a defense, and her mom may have helped out that defense a little bit today because she sure seemed authentic with her statement. Matt Johnson, live outside the Riverside County Courthouse in California. Matt, thank you. Let's bring in the tank. Joined tonight, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III, there he is. Criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland, he's in the Dominican Republic, by the way, and family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. The three musketeers together on this one. This is a heartbreaker. Al, let's fast forward to where we just left off Rebecca, the mom. She sat outside with Dad, outside the Big Five, telling this story about how these men attacked her. Next thing you know, the baby, all lies. All lies. Does she have a defense in your mind that is building in that, given his history, given the mom addressing the court today saying, we didn't know anything about could she potentially have a viable defense, or is she just as guilty as her husband who pled guilty?
I mean, unfortunately, I don't think she has a viable defense in this at all. I mean, you know, they're going to claim she was a battered woman or something along those lines. It just doesn't make sense to me that she didn't do something to get away from this guy. And I don't care what the circumstances are. This is her child, and this child was murdered, and this child was killed, and then she facilitated this whole process by making up this lie. And, you know, her mother got up there and made an impassioned statement, and it was very moving. But the comments she made about her daughter, I have to question as to whether or not they were just sort of self-serving to her daughter's case, because she didn't have any contact with her daughter. She didn't even see this baby. So if the mother was, I mean, if you know, the baby's mother was this traumatized and attacked or whatever, she didn't reach out for anyone. And I think they're going to have a hard time. And it was a smart move for them to be there watching this. They want to see what's going down. But in the end, I don't think there's any jury that's not going to convict her.
Darnell?
You know, again, it's one of those things where you're making a deal with the devil. So, you know, as the judge said, accepting responsibility or pleading earlier is significant, and it's something that's notable, but it still can't change the horror that happened here. And so that's why the courts have to grapple with that. Now, what type of benefit does that give to the co-defendant, or what type of benefit does she lose? I think she loses a great deal of benefits because she's not going to be able to put on a case that's going to contradict someone who she planned this crime with. So I think this is going to hurt her in the long run in terms of her defense.
The fact that he pled guilty and is now out of the... Could he, theoretically, if he feels really bad that he indeed was this controlling monster that took her life along with these and beat these two kids, including baby Emmanuel, Jennifer, could he show up at her trial and say, I did it, and she's innocent?
I guess conceivably he could, but given his demeanor and the way he's acted throughout all of this, I don't think you're going to see that because, I mean, he abused one child, got released, never went to jail, and then he just did the same thing again. And to believe that she didn't say anything, she didn't know, maybe the grandmother didn't know his history, but you would think that his own wife would have known where he came from, what happened with him. And if she didn't, then once he started abusing this child, Emmanuel, which, abuse was apparently over the course of time, she didn't report it. She didn't say anything. I mean, did they ever take this child to the doctor? To a pediatrician, who was a mandated reporter? Did anyone have access to this child other than this couple? That's the question. I mean, obviously the grandmother didn't, but who else was around these people where she could have said, hey, help, I'm going to need somebody to interfere here if she couldn't do it herself. So I don't think she has a very strong defense. I think she knew about what was going on. She didn't do anything about it. And then in the end, she even covered for her husband. So I don't see her getting out of this.
Yeah, I mean, she had a front row seat to the abuse of this child, whether or not she was aware of his past. You could argue it doesn't even matter because your child is now being abused by the father, and that's when you lay it out. You lay your life out there, and any argument to the contrary, it can happen. There are people that are completely controlled by other individuals. I don't know if it's this case. Al, what about Jake, the dad? He pled guilty, and the judge did basically as much as he could. He's running these sentences consecutively, but technically, it's still 37 to life, not just life. But practically, is he going to spend the rest of his life in prison?
There's no doubt he's going to be spending the rest of his life in prison, and there's got to be a question as to how he wasn't in jail after what he did to his first child. I mean, the horrific injuries that poor child has suffered and the life sentence he gave that child. That's why I know he's not going to stand up in the next trial with his spouse and take the blame and take everything and move to defend her, because he's a coward. He's a child beater. All right, this man shouldn't have been out in the first place. He was on probation. He should have been incarcerated. So what's going to happen when he comes up for parole at any point in time? It's not going to happen. I mean, this is just a horrific scenario. This is a coward. This is a man who's not only beaten one child to near death, he beat another one to death. So this man is not getting out anytime soon.
And Darnell, how does that happen? I mean, a 10-month-old little girl is beaten so badly, fractured ribs, fractured skull. She's bedridden apparently for life at this point. I mean, this is as bad as it gets. How does anybody in any system say, well, let's give the lad another chance and have him go find another woman, get her pregnant, and it boggles the mind.
Yeah, it's a classic failure of the system, and you see this all along in law enforcement, where police officers are charged with becoming medical workers and trying to deal with mental health issues, and they got on the job to do law enforcement and stop crimes, but now they're doing things that they weren't hired to do. Well, you find these other spaces where people aren't able to assess mental health issues. I haven't even heard mental health that much brought to the center of this case. And when he was a part of the first case, they should have already had him assessed to be unable to be around children unless it's supervised. Jen knows, knows more about supervised visits and things of that nature, although she never tried a case in her life. She can tell you that, people who have mental health issues have to have supervised visits sometimes when they have these kids. And that should have happened here, but the system failed, and that's what happened. So, as Al said, this is a horrific tragedy, and we aren't going to stop seeing these if the system doesn't stop failing.
Jennifer, is this a 1 in a million, or does this happen more often than not? Maybe not to this degree, but the cracks in the system failure that Darnell refers to.
Yeah, well, just to correct Darnell, I have many cases. I just haven't prosecuted cases. But I think that this happens quite often, Ted, and there are many children out there that are the subject of abuse. Not to this extent necessarily, but you hear about it, you see it. In the court system, is filled with children that suffer abuse at the hands of their parents. And, oftentimes, it doesn't reach this level, thankfully, because the system does intervene and social services does intervene, is able to take children out of those homes. But you see these failures, we see them quite often where, for whatever reason, there is no contact with social services, or they miss it, or there's no one else around to protect these children. And oftentimes, it's both parents that are, if not both abusing the child, one is allowing it to go on. So, it's a tragic outcome here for this baby and the other child that was severely abused and will never live a normal life. So thankfully, this guy is, where he belongs right now. But the fact that he was allowed to do this to two innocent children is just very, very sad.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And you see mom being escorted after the arrest into the back of the squad car. Her case is going to be the subject of our discussion moving forward over the next year plus. Again, the preliminary hearing for her scheduled for early next year, and we'll see where this whole thing goes. But today, this one chapter closed, at least for now. Jake, the dad, going to prison. And this was a televised case. A lot of interest in Los Angeles, which is not good for him as he heads into the California penal system. Let's get a break. When we come back, the think tank's going to stick around. More legal battles in the case of the perfect neighbor, Susan Lorenz. She's now going after the woman that she killed kids. Plus, here's what's coming up next hour on Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, a Utah mom accused of murdering her husband during a bitter divorce. How do prosecutors say that Jennifer Gledhill committed this alleged murder?
The Court TV podcast will return.
Female's detained. I need medics. 1018. Hey, who all was out here when it happened?
Then she started banging so hard, everything started shaking.
Points at the door, fires one shot.
And she, I'm gonna kill you. And she's just banging away.
She shot that door for self-defense.
I panicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to kill me this time.
Whether you saw the Netflix documentary The Perfect Neighbor or watch the gavel-to-gavel coverage right here on Court TV, you remember what happened at the end of Susan Lorenz's trial. Jury found her guilty of manslaughter for the death of A.J. Owens, a mother of four who lived in the same neighborhood as Susan. The issues between Susan and the neighborhood kids started long before Susan shot an unarmed A.J. through her front door, and that wouldn't be the end of the disputes between them. Earlier this year, A.J.'s mother filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Lorenz and her former landlord on behalf of the estate. In response to that, Susan has now filed a handwritten letter to the court where she is threatening to countersue for defamation against A.J.'s children. The letter says in part, I now wish to countersue for slander, libel, and defamation of character. She names A.J.'s mother and children, as well as Charles Gabbard. He's the landlord, for not securing the property where she says she was harassed and threatened. Our think tank's still with us. Al Wunsch III, Darnell Crossley working out some issues with Jennifer Brandt's signal. You'd think she was the one in the DR this evening. Darnell, to you, what any valid argument that she has? She's the victim now of a Netflix doc that everybody's watching, and it has brought this story back to life, and she comes across the same way as she did in the courtroom. What are your thoughts about her handwritten threats of a countersuit?
Yeah, I think she's a bit tone deaf, and when it comes to accepting any sense of responsibility, that letter alone says that she accepts none. And she has to understand that these family is grieving, that she took the loss of someone, took the life of someone. And when you write something like that, it's just really bold and disrespectful, cold. And it's just, I think the court's gonna consider that behavior.
When during the trial, we saw her interviews with police and her basic story. She told it many different ways, that she was a complete victim here and that she was scared for her life, even though her door was locked. And she opened up, got her gun and shot right through the door, knowing full well the consequences, and the jury didn't buy any of it, Al. First of all, your thoughts on this lawsuit, and then the fact that she is even saying a word. I mean, just keep quiet if you were in her position, right?
Well, Ted, you said that she was suing partially for defamation of character. I think this is more of a definition of her lack of character. Who goes after the children of an individual who she murdered? Who goes after that? I mean, it's just horrific. Once again, this woman just doesn't stop. If you watched that Netflix special, you saw a woman, I mean, and you know, it's scary because, I mean, I had a neighbor that was sort of like this, not to that level, but that was just so nasty. These kids are out there playing and having a good time, and now she's threatening a countersuit against the children. I mean, just disgusting. And I hope that when she comes up to parole or anything along those lines, they take a look at this and say that she's placing the blame on children for her shooting the kids' mothers. What a piece of garbage this woman is. And you know what? She's a miserable individual. She is just a disgusting individual. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the civil trial, and I hope Court TV will cover that, because I can't wait to see her take the stand in a case like this. It's just going to be horrific, just absolutely hilarious to watch.
She might add you to her lawsuit there, Al. Jennifer's back.
You know what? Be my guest. Put me into that lawsuit, because there was no way that this woman is just a disaster of a human being. That door was locked. Okay, she had taken the kids' stuff. She told the kids, you send your mother over here, then you bring your mother over here. And what does she do? She shoots through a locked door at this poor woman who was doing nothing but defending her children. Just because this woman does not like kids playing. I have things on my lawn that say no trespassing. What a piece of garbage she is. Yeah, and you know, she's rotten. I hope she stays in jail forever. She's a rotten human being, and this makes it even more so that she is just I mean, first of all, they're not going to get anything from her in a wrongful death suit anyway. I mean, she doesn't have two nickels to rub together. They're going to be going after the landlord. There may be something there. The best thing they're going to get is a judgment against this piece of garbage that she's never going to be able to satisfy anyway. So, you know what? Good riddance to her.
Yeah, I mean, she's right out of central casting in terms of the get off of my lawn man or woman that we all remember growing up. There's always one, but not to this extent. Jennifer, your thoughts on this threat of a lawsuit that she's written, that she's going to go after the kids who no longer have a mother because of her?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous and it's horrible, but you also have to, you know, take into account, I guess she's defending against what she envisions they're doing to her. They're filing wrongful death lawsuit against her. As Al pointed out, she has nothing. They're not going to get anything from her. So I guess this is her way of, you know, counteracting that. And as you know, we're all lawyers. You know, this happens often that, you know, one party sues and the other countersues. So, I mean, it's not unheard of. But again, the whole thing is sort of frivolous, and really unnecessary on both sides. I mean, just because there's nothing to get from her. She's in jail. She's where she belongs. She did a horrible thing, and she's paying the price for it.
Here's more of her handwritten letter to the court. She addresses what she calls general allegations with the following. A.J. Owens and her children were trespassing. There were multiple no trespassing signs on the property. Ms. Owens did, in fact, scream, threatened to beat me multiple times while trespassing. Ms. Owens was instructed to stay off of the property along with her children by the county sheriff's department. So I shot her. Well, that part's not in there. But Darnell, she's regurgitating okay, if you're going to yell at them or call the police because you're a miserable neighbor, great. She shot somebody and killed him.
That was good. That was good. You actually probably voiced out what she was thinking. And the bottom line is this. She is still litigating and justifying the shooting. And for the life of me, that's what you should not be doing. This system is made up of people who can take a position, I get it. But you still should balance that with empathy of some sort. And this lady has no empathy, zero empathy. And we know when you look at a murder is an intentional killing of another. You have to have the mens rea and the actus rea. You have to think about it and you have to act on it. Manslaughter is when you act with grave indifference for human life. When she said, go get your parents, and she figures somebody's now at the door and you shoot through that door, when you shoot a gun, you intend to kill someone. Maybe not the person she killed, but she should have been hit with murder and not just that manslaughter charge. So she's already getting a break, and now she's doubling down and looking a gift horse in the mouth.
Here's some of Susan in her police interview, claiming she was in fear for her life.
I just remember being terrified that she was banging and screaming, and I just remember hearing her say, I'm going to kill you. I was in fear for my life. I mean, honest to God, I just feared that she was going to come through that door. I'm sorry, that's how I felt. I can't change the way I felt. I mean, it was sheer terror on my part. I mean, honest to God, I was shaking.
And that didn't work with the jury. At the end of the day, they found her guilty for taking this woman's life during a horribly ridiculous neighborhood dispute. She yelled at her kids. Mom went over to confront the neighbor and ended up dead, and now those kids have no mother. We'll continue to follow the civil portion of this while Susan remains in prison. The think tank's going to stay where they are because after the break, newly released photos of the knife sheath that led to the arrest of the Idaho student killer. Stay with us.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
The roommates of 1122 King Road went out on November 12th, 2022.
Kaylee and Madison arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home. The two surviving roommates had also been in the community but returned around 1 a.m.
By 3:30 a.m., everyone is back at home, and a white sedan prosecutors say was driven by the defendant is caught by a neighbor's surveillance camera driving by. 3 minutes later, the same car drives past the house heading out of the neighborhood. Then at 3:38 a.m., the driver does a second drive-by. At 3:56 a.m., the car passes by the house for a third time, in and out of the neighborhood.
These were just girls that went to sleep that night, and he was stalking them, he was hunting them.
At 4 a.m., a DoorDash driver drops off food that Xana Kernodle ordered. At 4:04 a.m., the suspect drives up the street toward the house again. Dylan told investigators it was around that time when something woke her up. It sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs. Xana's phone records show she is awake and on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. A surveillance camera picks up audio of a thud, voices, and a dog barking at 4:17 a.m. Dylan hears one of the girls say, "There's someone here." She also hears crying and a man say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Sometime between 4 o'clock and 4:20 a.m., she opens her door a few times, and at one point sees a man with bushy eyebrows walking past her room and towards the back sliding door.
She described this person as being white, male, wearing all black, a few inches taller than her. She's 5'10", wearing a mask, skinny, athletic, toned build.
Dylan calls and texts her roommates, but she's only able to reach Bethany. At 4:20 a.m., the car is seen on surveillance video again, this time leaving at a high rate of speed. Between 4:22 and 4:26, Dylan and Bethany send a flurry of text messages to each other. No one is answering. "I'm freaking out right now. Run down here." Dylan runs to Bethany's room, and on her way, she sees Xana lying on the floor of her bedroom. News Nation spoke with Kaylee's father about this.
I just imagine her booking her tail off, going down those steps as fast as she possibly could, seeing something at the side of her eyes, and just running all the way down the step.
At 4:32 a.m., Dylan sends a text to Kaylee, "Please answer." For the next 7 hours, Dylan and Bethany got on their social media, slept, and kept trying to reach others in the house. At about 11:50 a.m., they call two friends to come over and help check the house. That's when 911 is called.
911 location of your emergency. Something is happening. Something's happening in our house. We don't know what. One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up. Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments. I'm Ted Rollins in for Vinnie Politan. Tonight, that was a reminder. We know the story quite well. November 13th, 2022. A guy slips into the house and kills Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. Brian Kohlberger, we know his name. He was free for weeks. He even made it as far as Pennsylvania. But the one thing that he left behind got him. It was that knife sheath found at the crime scene. And tonight, for the first time, we're seeing the photos of that knife sheath. And it's just a knife sheath. What's the big deal? It's so important to the case, heartbreaking. You just look at that and you realize the size of the knife, the absolute anger and power that he delivered on those innocent children using that knife, and the fact that either Maddie or Kaylee ripped that knife out of his belt or wherever he had it, because it was found in between Maddie and the sheets. And it led to his arrest. That's it. Let's face it. I mean, they didn't have his name. They didn't have anything until that the public genealogy DNA hit to the sheath that was taken into evidence. Al Wunsch III, Darnell Crosslet, and Jennifer Branstad. Well, there's Jennifer, again, it's just a knife, just a knife sheath, but to this case that affected the entire country, it was everything, really. In the end of the day, you wonder if they didn't have it. I know the police chief and some others said, I think we would have still gotten him even without this sheath. I don't know. And just to think about the importance of that one bit of evidence and how often in cases it does come down to one bit of evidence, that sheath really was everything, was it not?
I think it was, especially because it had the DNA on it. And without that, they may not have gotten him, because within the house, I don't know if they would have found his DNA. And the car, I mean, it would have been harder to prove, but by using that knife sheath, they were able to trace it back to his family, to his father, and to him, ultimately. And then all the pieces kind of came together, and the explanation was more clear. So it is a critical piece of evidence. These poor kids, like you said, who died at his hands, at least, they were able to, somehow this evidence was left behind. So he was sloppy in his crime, And, you know, they were able to find that. So it really helped the case a lot, I think.
Darnell, Koberger's case is going to be back in court. They're talking about restitution. The defense here is that he doesn't have any money. So what's the point? We don't have anything, but the state's pointing out that he's getting, and it just boggles your mind, but it happens all the time with these cases, he's getting contributions sent to him in the prison. And they say, okay, well, he does have money, and that money should go to the families. What are your thoughts on that? And does that money, that sort of the canteen money donated by weirdos, does that translate? Could that be made liquid and given to the families? Is that practical? What's your thought?
No, I don't think it is, because when you do these GoFundMe pages, they're set up in a way that they have some ethical guardrails. And so, one, they have limits that they're looking to reach. Also, they have purposes that they have to articulate. And I'm sure they didn't articulate when they were eliciting this money or soliciting this money that they're going to use it for restitution. And why is it important to have a restitution order even if the person is insolvent? It's because they can come into money, and that orders serve as a judgment against them. It's almost like a civil judgment that sits there. So even if the person has no money today, the restitution order still should go in. I think it speaks to the case itself that this is horrible, and this damage that you did, you need to pay for it. So an order does that. And if they collect, they collect. If they don't, at least the order is sitting there. Again, if he comes into money, they can perfect that order against that money that he comes into.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't, but that does sometimes happen with the notorious killer. Al Wunsch III, Dale Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, as always, thank you. That's all the time we have. After the break, we're going to reveal something you need to know. Plus, here's a look at what's coming up next hour on Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight on VPI, Jennifer Gledhill is accused of murdering her husband, and the informant she allegedly confessed to was her lover. What do we know about Jennifer Gledhill's affair?
This is the Court TV Podcast.
All right, we've reached the point in the show where we reveal something else you need to know. Let's put it up on the big board. Today, we're seeing our first glimpse of Sean Diddy Combs behind bars in these images obtained by TMZ. The photos released by TMZ show Diddy outside in the prison yard during recreation time. He appears to be smiling. You even see he's got a little gray beard working there. Combs is being housed at the FCI for DIX in New Jersey. You can see he's dressed cold. It's obviously cold there. He's got his jacket on, wearing his hat, long sleeves and pants. He asked to be moved to this facility because of their drug treatment program, and he'd be closer to his family. And we do know that when he's released from prison, May 8th, 2028, is his projected release date. He was sentenced to 50 months in prison after being found guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. There he is, Sean Combs, out there in the yard. Before we end, need to show you a picture. This is Madison Isom. She is 15 years old and has been missing from Houston, Texas since November 2nd. If you have any information about where Madison is tonight, please call the Houston Police Department. That number on your screen, or you can always call 911 or 1-800-THE-LOST. Let's see if we can get Madison to a safe place tonight. That is all we have for closing arguments, but don't go away. We have another hour of live true crime coming up next on Vinnie Politan Investigates.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.